This is the last full meeting of Sedgemoor District Council before we move into the Unity Authority. And it's nice to see so many councillors here. And moving on to the meeting, it could be a lengthy meeting, otherwise we've got to move on if we could, all right, please? So I'm going to, any apologies today? Bob Brown?
Chairman. Turn off, Chairman. Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Lance Duddridge, Councillor Mark Healy, Councillor Lee Redman and Councillor Liz Levy, who will be late. Those are the formal apologies, Chairman.
Do you mind if I add Councillor Tony Hayward and Councillor Lee Gibson?
Right. Okay. Councillor Anthony Betty. Liz Perry. October 2022 and the 14th of December 2022 is a correct record. Have I got a proposer? Councillor Duncan McGinty, signed. Councillor Joe Slocum, seconded. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to note that on the minutes of the 14th of December, I wasn't recorded as present, but I was there. Thank you.
Right. Declarations of interest. I think probably the simplest way out of that for all people from the county to put their hands up. Okay, thank you very much, councillors. So it took us about 10 months to get that one right, but we got it right this time. Councillor Castle, who will you point now? Councillor Pearce, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Before we move on from declarations of interest, I need to declare an ORI as a member of the Homes in Sedgemoor board for item 10, please.
Right, item 10. Right. Moving on to item number 4 today, Chairman's announcements. First of all, we need to have a minute's silence in memory of a former councillor, Councillor Anne Fraser. She was my fellow councillor representing North Petherton Ward, actually, and Anne was a very, very diligent, she was a very conscientious councillor. She really is. She put an awful lot of her life into council work. If you could stand for a minute's silence, please. Thank you, councillors. And would the council leader like to say a word about Anne and Brian and Bill, possibly? Yes, if you could. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I may well make reference to ex-councillor Fraser later on in the proceedings, but I'd just like to say that her contribution via the executive and on behalf of her ward were priceless. We had a number of deep discussions, shall we say, over the years. But I believe we respected each other, and she was an asset to the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Brian Smedley.
Just to express similar thoughts from the Labour group I served on with Councillor Fraser, as did several people here, and obviously with thoughts with her family and recognition of the service she gave to the council.
Councillor Bill Revens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like you, Anne was a ward colleague of mine, and although we sat on different sides of the political fence, we often agreed with each other more than we disagreed. We always shared transport to parish council meetings, and it was an honour to serve with her both on this council and North Petherton Town Council for a while, and also as a trustee of the Sir Thomas Roth charity. She did a huge amount for the community in North Newton and North Petherton. She was a redoubtable force of nature, and she'll be greatly missed. And my condolences to her family and to all that miss her. Thank you.
And I'll just say, she never missed a council meeting. She used to went to Leeds, Thurloxton, Bringfield. She never missed a council meeting. She was that conscientious. That's the sort of lady she was. Councillor Slocum would like to say a word, I think, as well.
Sorry. I'd just like to say, Chairman, when I first became on the executive a long time ago, Anne gave me a lot of help, a lot of guidance, and her knowledge was incredible. So I've always been very grateful to her. She was an immensely hardworking woman, very dedicated, and loved Sedgemoor. Thank you.
Now, moving on, I've got to present a cheque now to Rusty Road to Recovery. It's my chosen charity this year. And Bridgewater Town Council must have thought it was a good idea. They chose the same one. And I believe with a little bit, the 2 amounts of money, they may be able to do something. I went down to this place and looked at it, and I was very impressed in what they were doing and trying to achieve. But the biggest issue there, what the rates they were paying on the place. And I understand they're trying to find somewhere a little bit different now to make things a little bit easier. And we've got John and Lisa here today. Would you like to say a few words, John and Lisa?
The need a microphone.
Any of you think very small building we do with somebody idea of building
And we've got a cheque here to present. Another bit you've all been waiting for. To update you on recent activities. Here it is. Here it is. Don't ever say the chairman doesn't earn his money. That's without Somerset County Council and Pheasants as well, I'll tell you, right? If I mention one, I'm going to mention them all. So I'm going to go through quite quickly. Bob said, don't mess about, Alan. He said, get through quite quickly. Isn't that right, Bob?
I did, Alan.
Right. So please,
ignore
with
me, I
intent.
know, but-
Right, the 27th of January, visited Highbridge for Holocaust celebrations. The 7th of February, went to Weston-super-Mare. Look at the Army engagement team, how they were trying to get people in the Army learning different skills. There wasn't too much about the Army, actually, it was sort of skills they can do while joining the Army. I did make the point. 14th of Feb, the Chairman's Awards at Taunton Rugby Club. And I was saying that my sister had an award there and I was quite proud of that. 20th of February, we had the cake judging at Sedgemoor, Bridgewater House. That was well supported. And a councillor from Cheddar won the cheese straws. You can probably all work that out why, right? That's what I'm going to say, Cheddar cheese straws. They're at the top of the list, aren't they? Right, 24th of February, St. Mary's Church. The end of the Sedgemoor District Council, the service, Thanksgiving service it was. That was well supported by previous councillors and today's, right. The 5th of March, Axbridge Civic Service. When the awards were handed out to young people, various things. On the 7th of March, a voluntary organisation at Bridgewater House. And a lot of credit here to Janet Keane and Bob Filmer, who's organised this, and Duncan as well, for organising the money and giving away to these organisations that are so important. What they were done. I think there were 22 people had awards that particular evening. The 10th of March, I opened up the new bowling arena at Northgate. I had a bowling lesson from Councillor Jill Slocum. Obviously, she was top of the averages. That's how it was, right? Yep. But what a fantastic place! If nobody hadn't been in there yet, it's fantastic. It really matches the cinema the other side. You really should visit it. It's got everything you want there. It really is. The 11th of February, I went to Wells Cathedral. That was the end of the 5 district councils, all rolled into one council, and that was quite an emotional day, that was. We had to hand the chains in front of the altar and other things. And each of the district councils had to read a lesson. On the original manuscript, I was reading number 3, but when I got there, the gentleman came up to me, Alan, you better go number 1 today. And I was all worried what I was going to say, because you know what I am, I do drop a little bit in now and again that perhaps I shouldn't do, but it gets a feeling of the job, right? But you know what I'm saying, Duncan, yes? The 16th of February, went to Wilhampton Village Hall. There again, look at the grants that have been given to various village halls all over Sedgemoor, and there's been a lot of money and a lot of improvements to the village halls over a period of years. And without these grants, it wouldn't happen, and how important they are to the local communities. Once again, a big thank you to Bob Filmer and Janet for getting all this sorted out. Right. The 22nd of March, believe it or not, I was still standing. There was a staff party here, of which I attended at 4 o'clock. Unfortunately, I had to do my neighbour's eulogy. After 70 years, I couldn't turn that down, and that was it happened to come the same day, and you can't help when people pass away, I'm afraid, right? But I did come down here afterwards, and the way it was set out and the atmosphere, the minute you come through the door, you sent Sedgemoor straight. It was a warm atmosphere, and when they got the band up playing, only one unfortunate thing, nobody wanted to dance because they couldn't move the tables. But the deputy leader did come up and challenge me to a dance, and I'm always up for a challenge, and we did dance. Is that right, Joe? And I had to dance my wife later on. And things got a bit lively towards the end, and I left at 8:30. Right, I know what you're all laughing at. You're starting to tap. That's Bob. You're enough, Bob. I've got a few more to go yet. Right. 25th of March, only last Sunday, Taunton and West Somerset. The end of that council and the civic service combined. Turned out to be a very nice event. A lot of people had well worthwhile awards down there as well. And today we've got the full council. And on Friday, I'm going to preempt things now. I've got to go 8 Park at Burnham and put I've done a capsule and I've got to write a farewell speech so they can put in their capsule. Somebody might find it in 200 or 300 years and able to read it. You just don't ever know. And plant an oak tree as well. So that's the civic events I've attended since the last council meeting. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you. Mr. Duncan McGinty.
Thank you, Chairman. Just thank you for your Chairman's reports over the last couple of years. They certainly have been entertaining and enlightening as to the activities that you get up to. I would just say about the Sedgemoor celebration, which took place last week, you missed one of the highlights of that celebration, but if members wish to view it, it's on YouTube, and the little bit with Clinton Rogers, I can thoroughly recommend. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Leader. I hope you all enjoyed it. People that attended, well, if you didn't attend, shame you missed it. That's how it is, right? Moving on, item number 5 today, public speaking time. None at all today, right? Moving to item number 6, recommendations from executive and other committees. Moving on to item 6.1, the tidal barrier. I will now hand you over to the leader, Duncan McGinty, report on that.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the majority, well, all of it is in the report that's before you, and I have pleasure in inputting the 3 recommendations to Council today.
Thank you, Councillor Slocum. All those in favour? Big show of hands if you can, that's it, please. Right. It looks unanimous. It is. Unanimous, that is, yeah. Very important, tidal barrier. Very important. Sorry, I've jumped the queue again. It's been late out there, I thought it was. Put me off. I've jumped the debate. If anybody want to debate regarding this tidal barrier, and we'll take a vote afterwards. Councillor Brian Smedley.
Well, we were thinking of calling this in, but we thought we'd better not.
Thank you for that, Brian. Right, 6.2, a capital budget update. A recommendation for the executive held on the 8th of February 2023. I will now hand it over to the leader to propose a recommendation.
Thank you. The recommendation is that we approve the revised capital budget requirements for 22-23, unless, of course, the opposition wish to call it in.
No. Could I ask for a show of hands then, please? All those in favour? Unanimous again. That's why it says we'll be done so well. We'll get on so well. That's the important one. Thank you all. Right, item 6.3, gender pay statement. It's a recommendation for the audit and standards held on the 30th of February 2023. I will now hand over to Julie Pay to propose a recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to recommend the 2 recommendations before you.
Any debate, councillors? Right, could I ask for a vote on this, please? All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you all. Thank you, Julie. Now, item 6.4, the charity street collection policy. It's a recommendation for licensing and general purposes out on the 18th of January 2023. I would now hand over to the chairman of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee, Polly Costello, to prepare.
Well done for getting my name right. Thanks very much. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to recommend the amendment to the Council's charitable collections policy with the removal of Article 21.
Or three, all the way around. Barry Crow. Thank you, Barry. Any debate, councillors? A show of hands, then, please. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Thank you. I do apologise again. You haven't spoken to me, so I got your name wrong, have you? But it's quite easy to do that day, actually. Quite easy to do. But now we move on to executive question time. And we have apologies from Councillor Dudridge.
Yes, Chairman, I do hope he's well. Yeah.
Same thing, I have to be honest. I've caught up with him a few times and I don't think he's the last we know, if I'm honest, right? Leader of the Council, Duncan McGinty. Any questions? No? Deputy Leader, and investment and growth, Councillor Jill Slocum. No questions? Thank you, councillors. Infrastructure and transport, Councillor Mike Caswell. Nothing at all, right. Housing, Councillor Andrew Gilling. Councillor Duncan McGinty, please.
I just want to point out that should we be unable to answer any of these questions here today, we may be pushed to get a written response to you by the end of the week. Just apologising in advance.
I can supply a forwarding address.
Right. Commercial and asset management, Councillor Mark Healy, but I've got apologies from Mark today. So if there is any questions, you'll obviously do it in writing. None at all? Right. Communities and Wellbeing, Councillor Janet Keane. No questions either, right? Thank you for that, members. Then moving on to item number 8, the committee chairman reports. We'll start with 8.1 Development Committee, Councillor Bob Filmer. Councillor Duncan McGinty, please.
I just wish to celebrate the chairmanship of our Development Committee under Bob's guidance for the last, can't remember how many years, but it's certainly 14 years. He's certainly been a reliable force to depend on for the council. Has rarely got us into any trouble at all. Only dipped once on his 100% record, and certainly the performance has done nothing but increase during his chairmanship, and I thank him for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'd just like to reiterate that. Anybody else want to say? Sorry, I got Councillor.
I just wanted to say, as part of my portfolio, we have already thanked Bob, but he has done a tremendous job. And fortunately, he's going to the new council as well, with our new chairman opposite, and we'll be a great team in Sedgemoor and very formidable. So, but I'd like to thank Bob. He's been, we've had the planning performance and all the planning meetings we've had. He's been excellent. So thank you.
Chairman, just say thank you very much for those comments. I was also going to say I think we're fortunate that it is being handed over to Councillor Kathy Pearce, who is going to be chairing the new planning committee. Kathy's been on our committee for a number of years, knows how Sedgemoor has worked and how we've tried to work closely with the towns and parishes. And I'm sure in Cathy we have a really good, safe pair of hands to take the future of the Sedgemoor area in the new Somerset Council forward.
Thank you, Councillor Filmers. And congratulations to Councillor First for taking over the role of the North Planning Committee. Thank you very much. Thank you. You put up with me for 16 years, Bob, so you're very good. 8.2, Licence and General Purposes. Councillor Polly Costello. No questions at all? I did say it very slowly. It's not that I wouldn't get it mixed up. Right. Thank you, Polly. The Community Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Hilary Bruce. No questions at all? Right. The Corporate Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Brian Smedley. No, no hands. Thank you for all that, councillors. Thank you. What a contented council we are today. What a contented council. Bill's laughing, right? Right, item number 9 today. Members' question time. No questions been noticed? None at all? Sorry, Councillor Duncan McGinty.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to answer the question that nobody's quite asked at the moment. Why are we getting through things quite so quickly today, and what's the purpose of the agenda today? Well, basically, it's tying up many loose ends in order that we can hand over to the new council a fully formed and well-ended council in Sedgemoor. Thank you.
That leader, thank you. Councillor Human.
Well done. Generic question, Chair, is as we're now ceasing as district councillors, we still have planning applications on file where we have made either supporting or objective comments. Will we be called forward on the new committee to speak as an ex-councillor, or is that just now a sort of a written response? Thank you.
Thank you. I was rather hoping to hand that over to Cathy, actually.
Can I suggest we have a legal response to that?
My understanding is that, on memory, is that the new constitution of Somerset Council puts does have a clause in it that there is the discretion of the chair to have additional speakers, and I'd be happy to pass on the mood of this council, which I believe is that those district councillors who are no longer in post to advise chairs that they should treat them as sitting councillors in effect, and that little interim period between. So the point is well made, and I'll make sure that's passed on to the 5 new chairs of planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Happy with that, Councillor Human?
Thank you very much. It's a very good response. Thank you, Phil.
Now we come to exempt session. We've got to ask members of the public to clear any press here. I'm going to stop the meeting until we get going again. Okay, please.
The voters vote for this chairman needs to propose that we go into.
Sorry. Well, first of all those in favour is going into exempt session. That's the first thing. All those in favour, exempt session? Yeah. So moved.
Yeah.
Right, it's going to restart the meeting. Now I'm going to item number 12 today. Going to invite all leaders to give some closing speeches. Our leader, Labour, Liberals and the Conservatives, and I'll wind it up this afternoon. And officers as well want to speak as well. So quite a few people want to speak now. So the floor is yours, really. I think as this is the last chairman. Yes, I think I think I'm going to start with the leader. Councillor Duncan McGinty.
Thank you. I'm totally unprepared for this, Chairman. But thank you very much. I'm just going to stand for a second out of respect for every member of the council who's here today. I know it's a tradition that we stopped at the opening of COVID, but I still think it's valid here today just to say thank you to you all. I will sit now because, you know, I'm not as young as I used to be, but having paid that respect. I was originally, I'm going to ramble on a bit and talk about characters that I've met during the last 20 odd years through the council. Both Stuart and I were elected in the same year. I was elected as a result of a councillor dying when he was a councillor. So I came in on a by-election. People may remember Pat Kerrigan at the time. Well, certainly Brian would. He was a very decent character. And Stuart, who was it that you? Noreen Ellis-Jones, another character of this council. And talking of characters, I'd just like to mention highlights of my time during the last 27 years that came to me in a drunken stupor last night. I remember Lillian Cartwright and her husband Peter. She introduced me along with Brian to twinning, and we went to Schwamida when I was deputy leader. And one of the features of that was after our trip there, on the way back to the airport, it was discovered that Peter, Lillian's husband, had lost the passports. So we were somewhat delayed in returning to the UK, which has been a lasting memory for me, along with, after a heavy night of being hosted out there, the sight was Councillor Anne Bown crawling along the floor because she didn't wish to stand because she thought she might fall off the world. I mean, it's this kind of character that builds the leader you have today. I also remember Neville Jones and his wife Margot. Certainly someone more eloquent in debate I cannot think of, and certainly Margot's expertise at hospitality was certainly second to none, and certainly she instructed me how things should be done. I also remember members of the opposition, including Sandy Buchanan, who taught me a great deal about industrial engineering and industrial architecture. Whether I wanted to know about it at the time or not, he was very eloquent also in telling me. And of course, who could not remember John Lang, who taught me many things, including if you hit a bag of crisps when it's on a table, it splatters into millions of potato chips, which you then have to pick up off the floor. He also showed me how to park a tractor in the members' car park, which was an experience I will never forget. And whilst we talk about John Lang and farming, it's worth remembering that only 2% about of the population are involved in farming in this area, but probably 85% of the country is influenced by those farmers, and it's in them that they have a great responsibility to the land in which we believe is very pleasant here and enjoyable to live in. So thank you to all the farmers, including our chairman. I also remember Phil Smead and his wife Uta, who also lectured me on the value of twinning and the linking of hands, sometimes around my throat, but it was certainly an experience I'll never forget. Peter Downing and Dawn Hill, certainly were stalwarts of the council. Peter Downing's calm knowledge was invaluable to the council. I also remember Jessica Healy, a great Manchester United supporter. And I remember after a council on a Wednesday, she was off up to Manchester to watch a home game So pleased was she about that she lifted her skirt and showed me her Manchester United kit underneath it. Again, something that builds character in a leader. And talking also of farmers, let's not forget Glenn Dyer. Many thought he was related to someone on the Vicar of Dibley, but a more astute, business-orientated person you could never find. And certainly his advice to me on business investments and where the council should grow have been magnificent and something I've never forgotten. And it's great to see that his son is carrying on that tradition now. Bill Munn was a member of the opposition. I had a great deal of time for him. He was a real gentleman, and certainly used to try and drag my wife into a pub at election time in order that she would stop delivering leaflets in his area. And of course, Adrian Moore, although no longer with us, he was a character as well, who had a great deal to say, and I enjoyed hearing it. And of course, Roger Lavers, who again, sadly no longer with us, his leadership of the Labour group was one of interest. And I remember my first question to him all those years ago when he was chairing a meeting was, could he please pass the biscuits? Those halcyon days when we used to get coffee, tea and biscuits are long gone. Certainly, he made his mark on me. And certainly somebody else who I've left to last, Jeff Savage. Certainly, what I would say is the most caring of councillors I have ever met, and his guidance during the time has been wonderful. Something he reminded me today that I used to say to people when I showed them around the building on newly elected councillor day was, you'll either love it or you'll hate it being a councillor. You'll know within a few weeks. And thankfully, Jeff loved it and continued as long as he did. Likewise, I've loved it as well, and I'm grateful for the time I have had. I'd also like to mention some officers who certainly have a profound influence on me. Alan Lovell, when I first joined the council as chief executive, I remember my wife saying to him, you pay him too much. He's driving a red sports car, which she repeated to Alan on several occasions during his tenure as chief exec. Kerry Rickards, how different a chief exec could be, but was of the time and needed. Alison Griffin, again, a caring chief executive, and you know, well, good value for the council. Brought another aspect to it. And we come through to Bob Brown, who through the years, before he became chief exec, has been a constant to me, certainly through Hinkley Point and various other campaigns we've fought with central government. And I will miss his input. Doug Bamsey, I remember at a conference in Bournemouth, him disappearing up in a hot air balloon, wondering if he'd ever come down again. But he did, thankfully. And I remember Alison Turner. Our first meeting was in a room, and I think Alison thought I was going to give her cards. And certainly the first event I attended, which was Steve Atkinson's leaving party, I think. I think Alison Turner was dressed up as, was it? Marilyn Monroe, yes. Yeah. Again, something not to be forgotten. But I think my lasting memory of all was in Bridgewater the night we had the wall collapse. And I still remember a bicycle chained to the wall as it began to be suspended across the river. And that's something I will never forget. And I will also not forget you. I think this has been a very caring council over the years. It's treated people with humility and respect. And I hope that that continues with the new authority. I will, however, say I was slightly disappointed at the insensitivity earlier this week to be given my P45 before I'd actually finished. And I do hope that the new Somerset Council takes the message from this council that members are valuable and they need to be nurtured and respected. But apart from that, I've really enjoyed my time as leader and as a councillor. And if asked, would you do it again? Yes, I would. But thankfully for you, I won't be. So thank you very much. And I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Not an easy thing to do. Thank you very, very much. Now going to pass over to Brian Smedley. Go good, please.
Well, yes, thank you very much as well. I was going to read the speech I prepared, but I won't bother with that now. If I'd have known it was as simple as just remembering people and telling you an anecdote about them, I could have probably have done that without writing anything down. The people that come straight to mind, as you mentioned, twinning, was when Sedgemoor supported us a lot in twinning throughout the years. That's something I would say. And very early on, both the chair of the time was Patrick Daniel, who wasn't mentioned now, Patrick Daniel, and John Turner, who was the mayor of Bridgewater at the time, came over with us to the Czech Republic and took part in an international friendship festival with Czech TV and everything there. And they did this brilliant interview to Czech radio. And then they thought, great. Then they started getting drunk together. And then the Czech TV turned up, which was probably the last thing you'd expect. But they both conducted themselves brilliantly during that whole time. And so I would say Sedgemoor has helped internationally considerably over it. Every one of the councillors and chairs who have been involved in those things, I'd thank them, particularly the workers, Sedgemoor Unison, who we took on tours, footballing tours, for many years to 10 different countries, I think, along with our Czech partners. We visited a different country every year. So those sort of things, I think, are immeasurably important. I mean, I could go on and talk about all the people I remember as well. I mean, I've been in a room with a Dyer since I was at school, since 1970. I was in a room with Ian Dyer, and his dad was on council, and he was on council. And I remember, of course, the Totnes Young Communists with Councillor Slocum a year ago, which I can't remember how that turned out, but I think we separated a bit after that. And of course, the other thing, of course, strikes me, which none of you realise, I don't think, is that I'm the oldest living councillor here. That I've been here for 33 years, actually, and I had an argument with Peter Clayton about this not long ago, but he conceded, and I did because we also played an international football match on Burnham's new AstroTurf. Shortly after that, Neville Jones, who you mentioned, said you must play on this AstroTurf. Peter cut most of his leg up during that whole thing, trying to be clever on the pitch, and I don't know whether he's played since. And we did. We played against some Russians a few years later. You probably won't remember that as well. And which reminds me of the John Evans, who was the leader of the council for a short while, who also turned up at that match. And I didn't know whether he had a footballing background or not. The ball came to him, and he did several flicks in his legs and tapped it over the goalpost. I thought that was brilliant. But he was very good and supported us on the twinning as well. You know, historically, we didn't support Sedgemoor being created. You know, there's no point me saying any different to that now. I have a report which I found, I dug out last night. Bridgewater Labour Party would lose the control of Bridgewater Borough because originally the proposal from Redcliffe Maud was to create a unitary, but we thought that's never going to happen. And then a couple of years later, of course, Sedgemoor was created. And we did lose the power of Bridgewater for some 20 or 30 years until we got the town council back again. So when I first got elected to Sedgemoor in July the 12th, 1990, Councillor Slocum will remember that day well. It was that Victoria by-election at the height of the poll tax where the Tories were so beneficent to the people. But we won that election, and I think Sedgemoor wasn't a welcoming place at the time because it was the nation was in a bit of crisis. And I don't want to go into all that right now. But what I would say there was a big change in Sedgemoor for me, and I've seen 30 odd years of it, over the last 10 years. And I think what we feared originally, which was that Bridgewater would be lost in the Sedgemoor district, in the last few years that changed, and I think I know why that is. And I pay tribute to Duncan for his role in leading the council in that direction. And I think there's also a change in the council from the time when Kerry Rickards proudly said the developer is king, which I think it might have been a Sedgemoor policy through the years. There's a time when Alison Griffin was chief executive as well. I think there was a mood change as well in the council. There's a gender rebalancing as well. I think that's quite an important thing. And in the last few years, I would say Sedgemoor has been a benevolent force in the area. And when unitary came on the scene as an option for us a couple of years ago, we didn't want that. It was too big, too remote. We had the option of the two unitaries, which could have been a better solution, but we haven't got that. So Sedgemoor will be missed, strangely, in that respect. I wouldn't have said that in 1990. Certainly wouldn't have said it in 1974. But I think I would say in recent years, and I'd pay tribute to every officer that has tried hard to make sure that Sedgemoor did uphold those standards in recent years. And we have to look forward to the future. We've got unitary. We have the report that I have on my desk at home, Bridgewater versus Maud. It says in big black letters on the front, and Harold Wilson writing back saying, no, we definitely won't do it that way. And then Heath gets elected, does it a different way altogether. We've got to look forward to the new unitary. We're not so far away from the leaders of this new unitary. We were their great mates during the late 90s when we had the coalition of 3 years of Lib Lab control of Sedgemoor, and then they were your great mates for a while after on. But now I'm not quite sure whose mates they are. But everybody's got to get on. Everybody's got to get on together now, haven't they, Bill? So I think we look forward. We mustn't look back. You'll look back with fondness on Sedgemoor. We'll look back maybe at some of the struggles we had to go through, but we have to work with whatever system is there, and the system we've got is this unitary system. So thank everybody for their commitment to Sedgemoor and to Bridgewater over the years. Thanks to all the workers and the officers of the council, have done a great job, and Duncan particularly, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm going to hand over now to Councillor Bill Revins, new leader of the new Somerset Authority. Thank you, Bill.
So the end is nigh. I was just reflecting back 8 years ago, 2015, in Bridgewater Town Hall. I'd seen the ballot boxes emptied. It was a general election simultaneous with a council election. I'd seen the ballot papers come out, and I knew that our coalition with the Conservative Party nationally had an impact. These things do. Brian, I'll be mates with anyone. I'm not that fussy at all. And the next day, my late wife Karen had chemotherapy over in Musgrave Hospital, so I was with her, and my phone was turned off. And I switched it back on, and there was a series of messages from Janet Johnston, wife of Peter, a former chairman of this council. And the first message: "Are you coming to your count, Bill? It's just starting." And then the next message was, "It's looking a bit close, Bill. Are you coming to this count?" And the third message was, "Bill, there's a recount." And the fourth message was, "Bill, congratulations, you've won by 13 votes. And it certainly was something I was not expecting at the time. And I had to have a conversation with my employers about time off for public duties at that time. And I think that's eight years. I spent the first 4 years as the only member of my party in the council chamber, sat on my own in a corner. People did speak to me occasionally, but it was an interesting experience just being a backbench councillor. I know how important it is for all councillors to have their voices heard throughout their time on the council. The greatest fear I think we all have about the unitary council is it becomes remote. And to me, the most important thing about Sedgemoor and the way that we work with our town and parish councils is we work well with our community. And if that's something that we can take into the culture of the new Somerset Council, then that would be something that will do well for all the people of the county. And as the leader of the Liberal Democrat group here at Sedgemoor, I'd look back at some of the past personalities, some of whom predate me. The first leader was a chap called Arthur Passmore from Cannington, and I realised I know nothing about Arthur Passmore from Cannington. But our second leader was Jeff Schickel from Burnham, who I was trying to persuade to stand 4 years ago for this council, and I know he's been a purveyor of shoes in the interim. And I was at school with his children, and a very fine chap he was. I've mentioned Peter Johnston, but Brian mentioned the time when there was a Lib Lab Pact in this council, and Heather Strawbridge was leader of council, a very fine lady who's not too well at the moment. She's my daughter's godmother, and I do remember her. And then other great personalities that have come from these benches, Adrian Nichols, David Baker, who I think also sat on the other benches as well at some points, and some leaders, the less said about the better, but particularly fond of Alan Groves and Katie Lawson, who sat on this council for 4 years, who both were lovely members of the community in Burnham on Sea, and Marilyn Wallace, who now is very involved with the community up in Scotland, also another person who contributed greatly. And thinking of very many people who've sat on all benches. Dave White, who was councillor for Sowie Ward. I'm thinking of Michael Payne and Cyril Vanston in North Petherton. A lot of people who have contributed to this council over the years and made it what it is today. But we look forwards. We now have a brave new world of a unitary council that I have to say I wasn't in favour of. I think it's going to be hard work to deliver across an area as wide from Frome to Porlock, from Cheddar to Chard, to be able to deliver a consistency of service to all those communities with all their diversity, with all their differences. And it's an honour and a privilege to find myself as the first leader of Somerset Council, and having gone from 8 years ago being one councillor, the de facto leader of my group, because I was my group, to being the leader of the largest group of my party of any council in the country, and the leader of the largest council from my party, I find to be a great honour and a great privilege. And I know that I've got friends in all parties that have come from this council, and I look forward to working with everybody here in the years to come. Just some final words. I would very much echo what Councillor Smedley said about the culture that we've seen in this council, particularly over the last 10 years. I think there has been a real sea change in the way that this council has seen the communities that it works with, and has shown a real willingness to listen and to be caring. I haven't agreed with everything that this council has done. You wouldn't expect me to, but I have seen the culture that I would love to replicate in the new council. And I really hope to work with many of you in that new council. And those of you who aren't coming forward to the new council, the door is always open. Your views are always welcome. And I know we've all got our community's interests at our heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans, and good luck with your new role. Sorry. Duncan, do you want to say?
Sorry, Chairman, I was just going to say in Sedgemoor we did away with doors some years ago, so we don't need to keep them open anymore. Thank you.
I've got quite a few people got to speak, actually. I've got Councillor Slocum is going to speak next, and we've got officers who'd like to say a few words, and any members that want to say things as well, all right? It's your time to say what you want to say, because it's the last meeting of Sedgemoor District Council. And I shall wrap things up with my little speech, and that won't last 2 minutes, maybe 3. Right, so Councillor Slocum, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Is that, you hear me? Obviously, I've coming up to 25 years. So, and yes, I agree. I have known Brian a long time. I met Brian in 1990. And then I stood again and again in Victoria, never got elected until now, but had a ball in Victoria. It was great fun, absolute great fun. But I would like to pay a real tribute to the chairman of council. You've had a difficult 2 years, difficult 2 years. I don't think anyone realises. You've kept the front up well. You've been very chirpy, very chatty. And I think we want to really all thank you so much for what you've done, because you really have done a brilliant job, you know, really. I'd like to thank the deputy chairman who stood in as well for you and been by your side when you've needed him and given us all a good chuckle. Our chief executive, who has stepped up to a very difficult time when the chief executive took over, but he did a brilliant job. And I shall miss our early morning meetings, Bob, really will. Our deputy chief executive is Doug Bamsey. I've worked exceedingly close to over the last few years. He has been excellent. Your knowledge, Doug, is incredible. I wish we could bottle it and I could hang on to it, because I definitely need it. Your dedication to the job is brilliant. We entertained the Dutch last week, and we did such a lot with them. They were absolutely amazed about Sedgemoor with EDF and Hinkley Point, and we went everywhere, and it was absolutely brilliant. So I want to thank you for that. I would like to thank all the officers who have done such a brilliant job here. I'd like to thank Steve Taylor, especially for his patience with my IT, and Louise. They've done a brilliant job, absolutely brilliant, and been there for me when I needed it in a very calm, you know, Steve's note is hold the line, caller, one moment, caller, and he's there and he does the job. And I think all of us will never forget the line we've all learnt since COVID. You are on mute. We'll remember that forever, all of us. I think that's a line we're going to be there. I would like to say thank you to all the members here today. You've all been fabulous, and obviously my co-worker, brilliant. She's just been amazing, amazing.
You're not getting emotional.
No, I'm not. Don't worry, because you'll hit me if I do. I just want to say our leader is over 18 years. This is the longest standing leader of Sedgemoor. We all know he's done an amazing job. Don't want to make his head any bigger. His commitment, dedication, sincerity. But I got to tell you a secret. He lied to me. I had one lie from him since all the time I've known him. He lied. In 1988, he came to my house and sat with me and Pete and said, I was working at the library service then at headquarters in Bridgewater. And he said to me, don't worry about the job. Don't worry about the council. You'll meet every 8 weeks. Oh, no, there won't be too much to do. Oh, there'll be outside bodies, but don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about anything. So I can still work then, Duncan. Oh, yes, of course you can. Don't worry about a thing. And then in 1999, I hate to remind you, Brian, of the great years, but we wiped the board. And obviously, we did really, really well. But obviously that led me in my personal life very, very difficult, because I had to then run from Mount Street right down the road every time for a council meeting at 2:30, and having to go in early in the mornings to get there because he lied. And I just want you to know that is the only lie we'll ever hear, but that is the time he lied. But I want to tell Duncan, it's been an honour and a privilege to be the deputy to him on this council. I've learned so much from Duncan. He's told me so much, showed me so much, and told me off so much. And I don't know who's going to look after me now, Bill, on the other side. But you know, so with that, I want to do something. I hope you'll bear with me. We want to make a presentation to our leader of council for a tremendous 18 years, Duncan. So if you just bear a minute.
Is it a wheelbarrow full of money?
This is from the whole council, to say thank you, Duncan, for everything you've done. The little memorial. Don't break it. And this is flowers for your long-suffering wife. Oh, by God, she has been. God. She's put up with you, and I don't know how she's done it, but she's been tremendous. So that is for you, Duncan. But we want all of us, all the whole council, I think you'll all agree, you have done a tremendous job for us and looked after us and comforted us when we've been down and not out. So thank you very, very much.
No, thank you. It's been
Slocum and Thank you again, Duncan McGinty. Well done. Thank you both. I'm gonna let Bob speak now, if I could please, and members can come in afterwards if they'd like to say anything at all.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can, I'll just say a few words on behalf of officers. And I think Bill, Brian and Duncan have made the comments about actually how well collectively that we've worked together. It's a partnership, delivery of services and delivery to the communities and the people who live in Sedgemoor. And it's a partnership of politicians, yourselves and officers delivering on that. And can I say thank you all collectively to you all, because obviously there's a leading group that's got to work, you've got to work with to make some decisions, but there's opposition that you need to work with who have the job of constructively challenging and asking the difficult questions and making sure their communities are served. And as a collection of politicians, I think the atmosphere has been absolutely right. There's been difficult questions asked, there's been proper challenge and community representation, but never done acrimoniously and never done to undermine. And I think officers have found that there really is an atmosphere of trust and respect when dealing across the piece. And that's down to, I think, the leaders of the group. So thank you to Bill, thank you to Brian, and thank you to Duncan for creating that atmosphere. It's allowed officers to get on, deliver some really good stuff that they can take pride in. And I think, for speaking on behalf of the management team, something that all the officers and management team can take pride in delivering with you. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll just move on to a couple of other thanks. So I'd like to personally thank the closest support that I have, my Deputy Chief Executive, Doug, and Strategic Director and Director of Finance, Alison, have been a really great support. And over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been really difficult supporting staff and making sure that we engage with yourselves to transfer into the new authority. So thank you to them and to the management team more broadly, and Melanie as the monitoring officer as well, which she's had an invidious task of trying to keep things together as well and make sure that behaviour is appropriate. But actually, it's not been a difficult job for her, because I think most of you, you've made her life easier in that regard. So just to say thank you very much. And on your behalf, I'm going to thank Democratic Services who've supported the council meetings and everything else. I think they've done an excellent job. This is the last meeting they're going to hold, so I just thank Steve, Layla, Andrew, and all the others for supporting you, and Louise. So just to say thank you on your behalf for that. I do have a small gift for each of the leaders, which is a memento, which I hope you'll take away and allow you to remember Sedgemoor and the ethos of Sedgemoor, and take that into your political groups, so that those words that you've said today sort of bear with those groups and go into the new authority and create the right atmosphere. So for each of you to say thank you, we have one of these each, which you can put up.
Big thank you to Bob. Thank you very, very much, Bob. And all the officers. A very, very big thank you. Without that team, it just wouldn't work. And I wonder where that sign went to Thurlotston. Now I know. Right. Members, I'm sure. Do any members like to say a few words? Or you all... Councillor Andrew Gilling would like to say a few words.
Literally, Chairman, it will only be a few words, but when I joined this organisation through the auspices of the late, great Alan Ham, I quizzed him a little bit as to how much it involved and how many meetings it involved, and his pat reply was, not many, how wrong he was. And here I am sitting on the executive of Sedgemoor 21 years later. I was indebted to him, but I was more indebted to my predecessors because I have also achieved one ambition in my life insofar that, unlike my 3 previous predecessors, I did not die in harness. Unless somebody's got other ideas, of course.
A couple of days ago, yeah.
That was my caveat. I've said my piece, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you. Councillor Janet Keane, please.
We'll remember Des Roach. Find any other party that really is quite so rumbustious, and that is a real memory for Sedgemoor.
Thank you very much, Janet, for those 2 wise words. Leader, Councillor Duncan McGinty.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for everyone's good wishes today. One thing I tend to say to apprentices when they've joined Sedgemoor and have started their work experience is, and I say it to all members and people here present as well, as you go through life in your new roles, become a sponge, soak up everything and learn that way. And that's the best way to move forward. And when you've got that knowledge, then make your mark on the world. And I recommend that to everyone here present.
Thank you for those 3 remarks, Leader. You must have been talking to the headmaster at Brymore. Thank you.
Yeah, you told me I was getting a road sweeper.
Did I? I let you down.
Let me down.
Oh, that's not good, is it? Did you want to?
Over to you, your closing speech, Chairman.
Okay. No other members want to say anything today then? No, that's all right. Okay. Please. All right. Well, I've been in the chairman's role for 2 years now, and never I expected that when I joined the council 16 years ago. I'd rise to that position to be able to do that, and I'm really, well, they've made me feel good. The family I work with on all sides of the council, we all get on so well, and that's what makes Sedgemoor so special. There's never no aggro regarding politics and things like that, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of rubbish. A lot of it is. Sometimes I think it is, and things settled down, and I got a bit nervous. I'm nervous today, to be honest, and I shouldn't be nervous, but I'm more nervous than I've been any time since I've been chairman of the council. Why, I don't know. I'll just say I've had a bit of a bash in the last 6 months. I've been a treble hatter, and I don't recommend that to anybody. When you take up other roles, drop something off, because you just can't forget those other things. I'm wrapped up pretty well in North Petherton, and you can't forget some of those issues. That they are big issues, but to experienced people and people with local knowledge, it's quite a small issue, and that's a problem with a lot of councils. Local knowledge is paramount, absolutely paramount. Anyhow, it isn't going to last 2 minutes. So it took me a week to work this out, what to write, because I've had to do a lot of speeches in the last month, believe it or not. And when you've got a lot of speeches to do, you tend to run one into the other. You can't get a clear head to exactly what you want to say. And when I got Janet, my wife, sat back there, she interjects now and again, well, you can't say that. You can't say that. Well, not very often. I'm bad in one ear. That's the trouble. That's the trouble. That's the trouble. So really, this is my closing speech as chairman of this council. The closing of the Sedgemoor District Council. This is my last message to you as chairman of Sedgemoor District Council, as vesting day, the 1st of April 2023, is nearly upon us. Personally, I had hoped this day would never come. I am sure there are many of you feeling the same. But sad and emotional as it is, we all have to move fast forward. stay positive, and hope that the new Somerset Authority is successful. Reflecting on the years since 1974, many councillors and staff have come and gone, but I know they all did their very best for this wonderful district council and for the communities they represented and served with diligence and integrity. My personal experience is that everyone who I've worked with, be they officers, staff, or councillors, have never let me down. We all have different qualities, and working as a team together has made Sedgemoor a truly successful council. I must, of course, mention the leadership of Councillor Duncan McGuinty, a truly fine leader, and I am proud to have been able to work with him for 16 years. We have to move on now, and I wish every success to the new authority. We know there will be difficult times as we change to this new authority, but with everyone's support, we will be able to deal with any tricky situations. I truly wish everyone all the very best for the future, and I won't be very far away. Signed, an emotional chairman. Took me a long time to write that. I have to be, because you've got to get it right. You could go, I could go on and on for years. You know what I'm like.
I've got one more item, Chairman.
Yeah, okay, okay, yeah. Carry on, Bob. Sorry.
Just one more item for you, Chairman, before you leave. I've got the duty of presenting you with your chairman's badge and photo. So if you just wait there a minute.
Right.
Chairman, your photo album and the last chairman's badge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for sharing those pleasurable times with all of you for the last 16 years. I know I'm a bit different than most people, but usually you find out what I do mean. The planning authority knows that. That's how I am, right? Yeah, before I close, I'm going to present my wife with some flowers. Yeah, Bob, come on. Bob's got to present my wife with some flowers. Janet, I want to thank her very much because she's been very patient and helpful me on IT. You know how good I am at that. So Janet, thank you very, very much.
Deserves a medal, Chairman.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't be able to get his chain on every time from my wife, so people manage, but I just don't know sometimes. But I do thank her very much. I too tend to worry about a lot of things, and when we talk things through, it never to the big worry, okay? So really, I'm going to close now. Sedgemoor District Council is the final meeting of Sedgemoor District, and